What is going on, everybody? So today is going to be a cool video that I have never done before, and it's going to be like a lightning round Q&A in a sense. And so I asked y'all on Instagram to ask me a bunch of questions so I can answer them all in one video, and here we go. I've got at least 140 questions that are like this, and so I'm gonna just read through them all very quickly. I'm gonna answer them as quickly as possible. Not gonna go in depth because some of this stuff I can already tell. I've already done detailed videos on it, so you know, feel free to search. First question, do you have to pay for insurance, life insurance, car insurance, etc. in the military? And the answer is yes and no. If you are active duty, you do not have to pay for your health insurance, and also you get other insurances for cheaper. So your car insurance and things like that, life insurance, you get at a discounted rate in the military in general. If you're active duty, health insurance is free. Other insurances are discounted. If you're in the reserves or the guard, then health insurance is heavily discounted, and then the same rule applies for the others. Easy way to get promotion points. There's different ways that you can do this. Obviously, going to school, getting college credits, that's actually a way to get some promotion points. Going to boards, winning boards, getting different awards. So if you want to get different ribbons and things like that, each one of those is gonna have different promotion points associated with it. And then going to different schools, that's also gonna get some promotion points for you. And then really the next thing is getting a certificate of achievement, which is like 5 promotion points, I believe. All of these are gonna take some time. You can't really just rack it up real quick. So there's really not an easy way, but there's pretty straightforward ways. Like if you want to do some online college, stuff like that, that is gonna help you out. If you want to do some military courses that are online, that is also gonna be another thing that can use some promotion points. And I actually made a video on that website, the Army Cool website. Go to Army Cool, really simple, look at your MOS, and then you can figure out how to get some promotion points. I'm gonna have to start answering these a little bit quicker, but can you rank up from E1 in basic training? Yes, you can rank up from E1 to E2. You can go from E2 to E3 at basic training, but you cannot get promoted to E4 at basic training. So even if you're the best soldier in the world, you're not gonna do that. Is it better to be feared or loved as a leader? I would definitely say it's better to be loved. Can someone who tore their ACL make a full recovery with no problems be an infantryman? I'd say that's just up to how serious the injury was and you know, the doctors, things like that. So that's a medical question, I'm not sure. When it was my graduation from basic training, did my family have to pay for tickets? No, they did not. What is the best job to get in the Army after you graduate OCS? So OCS is the officer candidate score, so now you're an officer, and I think, you know, 25 Alpha was the best, but that's really another one of those questions that I can't really answer. But it's really just gonna come down to whether or not you like the combat MOSs, or maybe you like engineering, or you like tech stuff, or you like planning. So there's a whole bunch of different things like that. So depending on what you want, there should be a branch that pretty much aligns with that. Next question, how hard is it to make your bed with them yelling at you? I'm assuming they're talking about the drill sergeants yelling at you at basic training, and it's not difficult because that doesn't really happen. They're not really like yelling at you when you make your bed. You wake up in the morning and you make your bed before you go downstairs to the first formation before PT in the morning. So there's really nobody yelling at you. It's just you make it as quickly as possible so that you're there at the hit time so you don't get yelled at after the fact. Will the Army accept people who have done drugs before, even if it's not in their body? Yeah, I mean, if you go to meth or something, you have drugs in your system, that's definitely a no-go. But a lot of people, you're gonna have to get a waiver for that. So you can join, but you're gonna have to get a waiver. Should I wait till after I finish college to join the Army, or quit college and join the Army? So whichever one works for you. So for me personally, I did 3 years of college before I actually joined the Army Reserves, and then I missed a semester of school because my basic training in AIT was about 8 months. So I missed the semester, and then I joined ROTC after the fact and did a couple more years of school and finished out. So you can kind of do it anywhere in between. In my opinion, I would do military first so that you get at least something to pay for school, unless you got some crazy scholarship or something like that, then that's not really a big deal. If you got like a full ride scholarship, then, you know, graduate college, do OCS, that's the fastest way to become an officer. If you aren't getting college paid for, then I would suggest going and joining at least the Army Reserves or National Guard, and then going to college and getting at least partial. But it really depends on your financial situation and how much college you want paid off, if that's something that you really want to do. Who gets deployed more, reserves or National Guard? It depends on the unit. So my personal units that I've been in have not been deployable ready at the time that I've been there. My current unit is a lot more close to being eligible to deploy than my previous unit, because they have to basically pass a test in order to be okay to go and actually deploy. So it depends on the unit. It doesn't really depend on the branch National Guard or reserves, but I would say the National Guard probably does a little bit more stuff because they have the state responsibilities as well. So they're probably gonna be doing stuff in the state. So if you want to get activated more, the National Guard probably would be the route to go, but those aren't necessarily deployments. How can you start a business in the Army online? The same way that you could do really anything else. If you have like a normal job and you want to start an online business, it's just the same thing. You're gonna have to just put in the time and effort after work to get that done. Now, if you're deployed and you're not in a good area where you can actually use the internet consistently, things like that, that's just gonna be difficult to do. But I mean, you can be overseas and start businesses. I mean, that happens all the time. There's other military YouTubers that have done that. Probably one of the most common questions ever that anybody in the military gets is, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? So the day-to-day basis is not really the same. It just depends on what the mission is going on. So if you're active duty, you're gonna be doing some kind of training more than likely, depending on what your MOS is. And maybe y'all will be getting ready for a field training exercise that's gonna be coming up. If you're prepping for deployment, there's gonna be other things that you gotta do. If you just got back from deployment, there's gonna be some other things that you have to do. There's just a lot of different things you're gonna be doing. And then, you know, this question isn't MOS specific. So depending on your MOS, there's a whole range of different things of what your day-to-day life is gonna be like. Next question, does the Army have a fire department? Yes, they do. How do MOS bonuses work? PS, you should make a video. So I'm doing a video on this. So your bonuses when you enlist are going to be based on your MOS. Some MOSs are going to have bonuses and some of them aren't. And that's really going to change all the time. That's just going to be changing all the time because the Army is going to have different standards, different requirements that they're gonna have to meet for manning those different MOSs. And if they really need a bunch of a certain MOS, they're gonna throw a little bit of bonus money at that MOS. If they don't need a whole bunch of that MOS, then they're probably not gonna have any kind of bonus for that MOS. So that's kind of how that's going to work. If it's a job that the Army is in need of, they're gonna have that bonus. And then also, how much bonus you qualify for will depend on essentially your credentials and your ASVAB score. So if you have a whole bunch of civilian experience and you have a crazy high ASVAB score, that's gonna open the door for you to get like the maximum bonus available. How long is basic training? About 10 weeks. Do I suffer from PTSD at all? No, I don't. I haven't done anything to where that would even require, you know, that. Do you get to stay in? Do I get a say in where you get placed after basic training? No, you do not. You do not get a say at all in your first duty station. And the only really time you really get a say is when you re-enlist. Army officer versus Navy officer. Not sure what we're comparing there. It's essentially Army versus Navy, so whichever branch you want. There's not going to be much of a difference. You're going to be planning like officers do. You're going to be leading different groups of people depending on what officer rank you are. So that's just the job in a sense is the same. It just depends on what branch you want to be. Can you go active after doing AIT in the reserves? Yes, you can. You can go active technically during AIT. My roommate at AIT went through the whole process of being switched to active duty at AIT. It was a whole big process and it took some time. Luckily we had a really long AIT, so we had the time to do that, but there's a lot of hoops that you gotta jump through. What happens if you have Shin splints at basic training? Well, you probably should go to sit call. You might get a waiver to actually not do any running or things like that, running or rucking, and they'll probably give you some shoes to wear instead of your boots. That'll happen if people have shin splint problems or any kind of leg problems. What they'll do is you go to sit call, they'll give you a waiver, and they'll basically tell you in that waiver that you should wear shoes, soft shoes, and wear those instead of your boots, and then you're not allowed to run or walk for a period of time. Hopefully it's not crazy, you know, a crazy injury that's going to get you out of a lot of, you know, training that you're going to miss. But you know, ultimately a lot of people are going to get shin splints. It's just if it's really bad, you want to go to sit call. So I'm gonna try and power through this freaking dog barking in the background. I really hope y'all can't hear it too much. But question is, signed as a 25 Bravo, which was my MOS, is there a way I can prepare for AIT? I would say the best way to prepare for 25 Bravo is kind of brushing up on the A+ certification stuff. So if you look up A+ certification, then if you kind of learn that, that's gonna be like the first 5 weeks at least of your 25 Bravo school AIT. It's gonna let you start off with kind of a better baseline, a better foundation for all the different stuff that you're gonna cover. Next question, what happens if you see an officer while you're not in uniform or they're not in uniform? And really, if it's like in your specific unit, you should really treat them the same way. You don't need to be saluting them or anything if they're not in uniform. That's just not what you need to do. But if you're both in uniform, obviously you should be saluting them. But if you're not, if you're just kind of seeing people out in civilian life, you kind of just treat them with respect. You don't necessarily have to stand at attention or stand at parade rest when you're in your civilian clothes. That's just like military clothes related. Does the military pay for emergency leave? The answer is yes. So if you are going to, if you don't have your leave days and you have to go on that emergency leave, basically you're just using leave that you don't have. So if you're active duty, you're always going to be getting paid like every day. There's no like day off where you like take time off and you don't get paid for that day. That's just not how that works. You get leave days and you can take your leave, and if you have to go on emergency leave and you don't have leave days saved up, then you're just gonna like use those, and then you're gonna have to basically earn them back and then get back to 0 leave days. What's my rank? First lieutenant. How do you manage to stay strong on God in the military? I think that just comes down to your personal beliefs going into it. If you're kind of easily swayed, then that may be a thing. You might want to make sure you're reading your Bible and stuff when you're at basic training. But the military is not going to ruin people. A lot of people, like for me, for example, I don't curse. I'm also a Christian. And a lot of people, you know, were worried about me being basically turned evil and turned bad. And, you know, I was going to go through, you know, basic training and AIT, and then I was going to come out and I was going to be cursing and getting, you know, tattoos, which a lot of people, Christians and stuff, like don't like people getting tattoos and all that stuff. And that's just not the case. So you just got to stay true to yourself and who you are. And I think the military in that environment is going to be fine. So it really just depends on who you associate yourself with in the military. What does the event will be terminated mean for push-ups and sit-ups? I'm maybe assuming you maybe read the regulations, but if they say terminated for the APFT or the ACFT coming up, that basically just means that your attempt at that event is over. It's terminated, and you're gonna have to wait a little bit and retry again. And if you retry again and you get terminated, if you screw up too bad, if you don't do the proper form, then you basically failed that event. Somebody's asking me what unit I'm in. I'm not going to say that. The only thing I've really told y'all is I'm civil affairs. So this is a good question. If you are a few seconds off, just a few seconds off of your 2-mile run, do you fail basic training? So yes, you do. Unless you're like 1 second off and your grader wants to give that to you, technically they shouldn't do that. And I would say in most cases, if you're like 2-3 seconds too late on that run, then you're just gonna retest the APFT or ACFT, depending on which one you're doing right now. I think they've delayed a few ACFT things at this point in time because of the whole virus situation. But if you do fail it by a couple seconds, you're not gonna fail basic training. They may push you through, but more than likely, I think you'll just retest. Retirement benefits for the Army Reserve. So the biggest retirement benefit difference from active duty to reserves and National Guard is in the reserves and guard, you don't get your retirement pay until you're 60. So you have to be 60 before you can start pulling that. And if you're active duty and you do 20 years and it's all 20 years have to be active duty, then you'll get your retirement right away. But if you're not in your reserves or guard, you get that at age 60, and also it's based off of points. So essentially for the reserves and guards, the more days of active duty service you have, the more you're gonna get paid at retirement. It's not the same baseline across the board. Think of it as just the more days you have, the more retirement you're gonna get. And then if you want to do more stuff to get extra retirement pay, then you can get those awards, you can get those ribbons, you can go to schools and things like that, and those are gonna give you points towards your retirement. So the more points, the more you get paid. But again, when you're 60. What kind of food do you eat at basic training? It's basically the same as all Army DFAC food. If you want to look up Army DFAC food, you can literally just Google it. It's not too complicated. Army or military food, in my opinion, I've never been to like an Air Force DFAC. People talk about the Air Force food all the time. But as far as Army specific food, I think you'll find things that are good that you actually like and enjoy. It'll be rare, in my opinion. I judge things based off of would I actually go out and pay for this? And for most things, I would say no. But there are a few things every now and again that you would pay for, but I'd say the food for the most part is pretty good. What kind of food is it? It's all kinds, everything you can, pretty much whatever you can think of. Next question, is ROTC worth it for the Army? That is totally up to you. If you want to be an officer, yes, it's definitely worth it. And it kind of goes back to an old question that I talked about before, and that is going to, or joining the military before, after, during college. It really kind of depends on when and how you want to pay for college. So if you want to do ROTC, and you know you don't want to go through college and pay for it yourself, you want to get an ROTC scholarship, yeah, that's totally worth it. If you don't mind paying for school, then really a fast way for you to go through school, the easiest would just be paying for school, going through school, and then doing OCS. How old can you be and still be in the military? So if you're talking about joining the military, I believe it's 35. And if you're talking about still being in the military, you know, you can be in for 30 years or so, 30 plus years. Some generals are in for like 35, 40 years. A lot of people will end up joining the reserves, and they'll be in the reserves for a long time. I'm not sure there's actually like a limit. There's a technical limit. So if you look up different MOS or different pay grades, each pay grade has a certain period of time where you have to get promoted within this number of years of being that pay grade, or else you get kicked out. And sometimes they abide by that and sometimes they don't. Does the Army use outside contractors for strength and conditioning ever? I would say yes. If you're talking about like PT stuff, they actually might have some essentially like personal trainers, people kind of training the unit or something, or send people to do some kind of little event with some personal trainers in a sense, if that's what you're talking about. But the Army, the military, uses contractors for basically everything. And most of the time, they're basically former military contractors. So they're basically people who retired in the military. Now they just work with the military. How long are Army Reserve contracts? What happens if your MOS is unavailable? So Army Reserve contracts are 3 years or 6 years. I would suggest, honestly, going with the 6 years, just because with the reserves. This is with the reserves because of the benefits that you get. You do not get a lot of the benefits by doing a 3-year contract in the Army Reserves. And because of the way the Army Reserves is the way it is, 6 years, it's not really that big of a deal in my opinion, and you get a lot of benefits for doing it. If your MOS is not available in the Army Reserves, you're gonna have a hard time. You're basically gonna have to move, because the way it works in the Reserves and the Guard is you're gonna be traveling to the unit wherever you're at each month, and if there's not a unit around you that actually needs your MOS, then you're gonna have to wait a long time and hope that one of them comes up, or your MOS may not even be available in like anywhere around where you're at, and I'm talking like states. What is it like being in the military, and would you recommend joining to anybody? I think what it's like being in the military is being a part of a bigger than yourself organization where you get to do some cool stuff. There's a lot of, like I said, organization. And if you like that kind of stuff, if you like that structured lifestyle, if you like the thought of the military and things like that, then it's definitely a positive. It's definitely something that I would at least recommend that you look into. But I don't think at the same time that's for everybody. So I'm not gonna say, hey, everybody look into the military. It's only if you like are already interested in it that you should look into it, if that makes sense. How can you become a guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier? It's a good question, and I'm not really sure, aside from just if the opportunity comes up, you can volunteer for it, or, I mean, reservists and National Guardists aren't gonna be doing this, I believe. I don't really know that for a fact, but I believe you have to be active duty. So if you're active duty and you want to ask around, ask people, ask recruiters, ask your retention officer, there's a lot of different things that you can do. You could just contact, I don't know what unit it is that does that, but you can contact them and ask them, but I don't personally know. Should anyone with a peanut allergy join the Army, and if so, should they hide it? No, you should definitely not hide it. You should definitely not hide any kind of allergies, especially if they're like serious. Like, that's definitely not something you should do. You should let them know. You should get something on your dog tag potentially. So like some people that are allergic to penicillin, you get that on your dog tags. And so it helps people know if they ever have to give you a shot or something and you're unconscious, that they know not to give you that. So definitely let the military know what your allergies are whenever you join it. Don't try to hide that. Part of basic training you can't prepare for yourself. The mental aspect of it. So one of the hard things about basic training is the mental stress. Just being in that environment where you're separated from the world. You can't really do that. I mean, unless you want to isolate yourself, but at the same time, you're just isolating yourself for no reason because you don't have all that crazy stress. So it's the sense of being isolated from the civilian world, and also the stress of the drill sergeants and having to perform well and having to not screw up so you don't screw over the rest of your platoon. So there's that little bit of stress there, and that's something that you kind of can't prepare for. And that's why I say it's one of the reasons why I say get in the best physical shape as possible when you go to basic training, because then you don't have to deal with the physical stress, you just have to deal with the mental stress. Probably just gonna do a couple more because this video is going on way too long and I'm not gonna get to all the questions that I got. But I want to tell my family that I'm joining the Army, but I'm not sure how to. Any advice? Yes, just number one, be honest with them. Don't try to hide it. Literally, some people will sign up, go through the whole process and be like, hey, mom, dad, I'm leaving for basic training tomorrow and I'm not gonna see y'all for several months. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Just make sure you frame it. Most parents are worried that your kids are gonna die. That's not gonna happen. I mean, technically there's a possibility, but just make sure you frame it like it's not gonna happen. Especially if you're not doing a combat MOS, then just, I think I've got some videos on that and how likely you are to die. Just share that video with them and I think that will help. How long in basic training does it take you to get used to all of the stress? You kind of get used to the environment and stuff, I would say after a week. After a week of basic training, not reception because that's just different, but of basic training, I would say after a week, you kind of start getting used to it. You start falling into your routine. You start falling into understanding which drill sergeants are going to be yelling at you all the time. You kind of just get used to that. But I would say after a week, it's kind of just like the new normal. What happens if you strain your muscles in basic training? So kind of the same thing I said before about getting shin splints. You're gonna go to sick call. If it's severe enough, they're gonna give you a waiver where you're gonna be written out of training. And hopefully it's not severe enough to where you're gonna miss too much training where you'll get recycled back and essentially stay at basic training a couple weeks longer. Do you have to shave every day if you barely grow facial hair? Yes, you do, especially at basic training. If you get to AIT, some people will try to get away with it, but I definitely would not try to get away with it at basic training because drill sergeants are gonna come up to you and they're gonna be checking you. They're gonna be looking at you, they're gonna be looking real close. I mean, if you just shaved, you shouldn't be seeing any hair anywhere, right? I mean, you shouldn't see anything at all. So don't be like, oh, I just shaved. Just shave every day. If you don't really grow facial hair, it's gonna be easy, it's gonna be quick, it's not gonna be painful, just real quick, super easy. What are the most important documents that you need to take to basic training? Your recruiters should be telling you this stuff. Just make sure if you want to get your BAH and all that stuff, so make sure you get your lease agreement, your mortgage and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you have to bring your birth certificate and stuff, but again, talk with your recruiter. I don't remember the exact paperwork that you need, but you do definitely need to bring some stuff. And that should all be in your packet when you leave. So you should have that in a little packet thing when you leave to go to basic training, because at reception, you're gonna be doing all that in processing. And so you wanna make sure that you have all that stuff. When you get to boot camp and they issue your uniform PT clothes, can you keep them? Yes, all the uniforms and stuff that you get, they say anything that touches your skin, you get to keep, as for forever. It's your personal stuff. So when new uniforms come out, you'll get new uniforms and you'll keep the old ones. And so if you stay in the military for a long time, you're gonna accumulate a whole bunch of different uniforms. There's a lot of great questions that I'm not gonna be able to get to in this video, but the last one that I'm going to do is, what am I looking for in a new private? So if I have, I'm an S6, so if I have a new private coming to my unit, what am I looking for? Honestly, for me, the biggest thing that I'm looking for is, are they willing to help? So if we have some things that we have to get done as the S6 section, if I ask you to go and do something, just be willing to work, be willing to help, and that's gonna go a long ways. Personally, I'm gonna look for myself at how motivated you are, right? So if you're motivated to do PT, if you're motivated to help people, if you're at formation and stuff on time. So kind of like what I did about impressing your first duty station, like that, but flip it reverse, where I'm actually looking for that, because being an officer is kind of what I'm talking about. I'm like, you know, hey, what I'm looking for whenever I see a new private in my unit. So it sucks I didn't make it to all the videos. I had absolutely no clue how this video was going to go, because I've never done anything like this long, this many questions in one little video. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. If you did, hit that like button, that'd be awesome. And check out some more of my videos. Hit that subscribe button, that would be even better. A lot of the questions that I covered in this video, I have done videos on before and covered them before. So if you are curious about any specific questions, make sure you just kind of like YouTube that question, put in Matt Ward, and that will probably come up, hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell, follow me on Instagram and Snapchat if you haven't already, and I will see y'all later.